Business AI.
The report says take-up of the technology across England and Wales is incredibly high, with around half of lawyers surveyed reporting they are already using AI technology.
People just don't realise there's an entire new world emerging full of clever new tech that's going to revolutionise the way we do business. The role of the lawyer in particular is changing dramatically.
In total, 126 tech startups have raised venture capital funding in Ukraine since the start of last year, according to PitchBook.
I think lawyers, old school lawyers particularly, think that everything that they do is really, really special and so therefore needs to be bespoke and needs to be done manually in a very artisanal way.
Great legal tech won't replace a great lawyer, but great legal tech in the hands of a great lawyer is game-changing.
This is Legal Disruptors, powered by Summize. Digital contracting done differently.
Hello and welcome back to the Summize Legal Disruptors podcast. I'm Tom Dunlop, the CEO and founder of Summize, and I'm delighted to be joined by Sarah Shoenen, Head of Legal Ops and Digital Transformation at PTC. So today we're talking about the difference in attitude towards automation within legal teams compared to other departments, and what it's like building a business case for technology at a global company like PTC. And so hopefully we will achieve, we'll also talk about what we can achieve through Summize as a partnership, because we're glad to call PTC a customer. So first of all, welcome to the podcast, Sarah.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
No problem at all. So I guess to start with, the usual question really, just a bit more about yourself, your background, and I guess your current role at PTC.
Yes, sure. So I don't have a legal background. I'm a mechanical engineer and I started my business journey in production and optimizing the production systems and driving digital transformation from industrial companies, more or less. And so my role at PTC now is to transfer this experience, this knowledge I'm having from the production and the industry. This is in general a little bit more matured maybe in this in their journey towards the digital thread and digital transformation than the typical business processes as legal is. And now I'm doing this since a little bit more than a year with PTC, starting with the EMEA region, but also somehow trying to transfer what we have learned to the other geos. And that's it.
Perfect. I believe prior to, I guess, being part of the legal function, it was more on the go-to-market side at PTC. So talk to us a little bit about the differences between working in a kind of go-to-market engine, what you were focused on, I guess the appetite of the business in terms of, I guess, digital transformation in that area compared to perhaps from a legal perspective.
Yeah, so actually the challenges are basically the same. So it's about not well documented processes. It's more like having the legacy of we always did it that way and that's why we're doing it this way, not really thinking about, okay, what makes the most of sense, what's the most efficient way of doing it. Then the entire problem with the data. So where are we getting this data? What do we want to do with the data? Which data do we need? It's exactly the same problems the industry is facing as we are facing now with the legal department. And also that this entire digital transformation is such a huge problem and that you don't know exactly where to start and how to set the roadmap and how to set the plan where to go. But of course, also differences from the industrial digital transformation to the legal transformation.
And on that, because I imagine certainly and this will link into another question surely about getting budget, but on the more industrial side, I imagine that the, I guess, process improvements are directly relevant to, how, let's say, how quickly a product could get out into the market, or it's all very much linked to that kind of either profitability or efficiency in the actual production process. Have you found that there's still the same appetite when you're working within legal from the wider business?
No, absolutely not.
That's a very leading question that was, but
So when I started, my first idea was also about just increasing the efficiency. How can we reduce repeatable tasks and all of that stuff? But then I realized that it's not only about increasing the efficiency, but it's also about making risk transparent, that we can see where are we deviating from our standards, what risk is related to these deviations, and all kind of this stuff. So it's a little bit more maybe about the quality of our work and how we make it transparent than really only the efficient part. Yeah.
Right, no, that makes sense. And I guess linked to that, because you were, I guess, the first person in the legal function to actually be looking at anything to do with this. So very much had the task of, a blank slate, kind of looking at what they're doing, educating people probably about what you were there to do. How did you find that, and how have you found building not only, I guess, the department, but also, let's say, your personal brand, your role, and how people perceive you in that area?
So in general, the legal team was or is still technical affine. So they already started to implement a meta management system to manage their workload and everything. So they are kind of on the journey already, but it was not that they are having dedicated workload or dedicated time for doing this type of things. So I think what changed when I got on board is that we are now really working consistently on this type of things, and that we are having a plan, what do we want to achieve, and that we are somehow trying to leverage everything that we are doing, that it is fitting and targeting the same goal. And yeah, this goes everything hands in hands now.
And I guess linked to this, because I think a lot of people in legal teams wonder when is the right time to hire a legal ops person, or even just someone to actually dedicate a part of their role, for example, to reviewing the processes and efficiency. Was there a particular moment or catalyst that it was kind of like, right, yes, Sarah, you need to go in there now and you need to sort this out? Was there a reason why there was a particular moment in time when it felt important to bring ops into legal, or was it just a chance move?
Yeah, actually, there was not this specific event. So it was not like we are getting a CLM system and now we need someone who takes care of processes. It was more a smooth transition somehow. Yeah.
Right. Well, that's good. That's reassuring that there's companies just willing to add resource without necessarily having the projects behind it. And I guess so. In terms of, I touched on it before. In terms of the legal spend, not only do people, I guess, in-house legal teams struggle to justify getting a headcount for operations, but then when you're actually looking to purchase technology, I guess convincing the business that you need budget is always a challenge. Is there any, I guess, tips that you would share, or I guess just your experience of going to the business for budget for technology within, I guess, a business like PTC?
Yeah, I think the main element for us was that we are understanding that the contracting process is dependent on very cross-functional teams, and that we are involving all of the cross-functional teams, because we are seeing that the values are super different for the different teams. So for sales, that the contract is getting faster, time to contract is reduced. For us, it's we are getting less of these smaller chicken shit tasks. For the review functions with finance, it's because we are having a greater standardization and we are using the same standard clauses. It's easier for them to review. So it's really the same solution, or the same process solves different struggles for the different departments. And I think understanding this and coming from this multi-perspective value proposition side, this was the key for us to get the budget finally.
That makes sense. So essentially, when you went to the different departments, well, one, I guess you made it a priority to involve all these different departments, but instead of just suggesting, we're buying legal tech and it's going to make legal more efficient, you build a business case around what they would care about. So go to market, it was about efficiency and getting deals over the line. Finance and compliance, it was more about standardization, I guess, risk mitigation. And then legal, it's alleviating low value. It's trying to get them working on the work that they want to work on. That makes complete sense.
Yep.
And so in terms of going about doing that, because obviously that sounds great, but one of the biggest things, and I found this in working in-house, is those relationships with those other departments can sometimes be quite fractious, or some departments are quite resistant because there might be overlap. I guess any tips or what was your experience in actually going out to those different departments across a business and trying to unite them to, back, I guess, your products or your budget?
So we are communicating this project as a project and not like we are implementing a tool. So it's for us about the people, the processes, the data and the tool. So we are combining and leveraging these 4 components and having a project dedicated to that. And so it's not only the goal to implement a CLM system, but it's also about discussing about the processes, aligning about the processes, having a greater discussion about business policies, who needs to approve what, that we're all getting now on the same page. And for us, it's so much easier to do it on a concrete example instead of having this discussion on an abstract level, just in general. So I think this was maybe the most convincing argument in the end, that we're saying, okay, it's not only about the tool, we are doing the entire contracting process and leveraging and standardizing there everything we can do.
And do you think, again, I feel like I'm asking a real leading question, but do you think it was a real advantage that you came from a non-legal background into legal to essentially be able to understand the wider business benefits of legal tech?
Yes and no. I think the benefit is that I also need to ask legal, what is your main concern? What is your main value? So it's less than that I am part of the legal team and just focusing on their value. But also sometimes hard because I'm not in the processes. I don't know how the processes work. So I'm a little bit the external in the project, which is good and which is bad. Yeah.
Fair enough. So from a skill set perspective, it was probably positive and a wider business understanding. But actually, when you're trying to understand the use case, having that legal domain knowledge is definitely helpful.
Yeah. So it's good to have both. So we are now doing a tandem with one of the legal part. Mariana, she's a lawyer, and now I'm doing the other part.
That's a good tip in itself, I guess, for anyone looking to implement technology or go about this kind of process change. Actually having that dual focus probably actually really, I guess, multiplies the effect of reviewing the process, but also getting wider business buy-in as well, and not just relying on lawyers in isolation or I guess this kind of project management, digital transformation expertise separately. Yep. That makes good sense. Well, I guess one of the things we should talk about is the Summize and PTC has been obviously very excited to have PTC as a customer. But I guess looking at that in isolation as a tech product and something again that would have followed your internal process and budget justification and what you've just discussed, what was the pain point that you were looking to achieve, looking to solve by using Summize? What was the kind of business case or the kind of internal message when you were kind of going to the wider teams?
I think it's really about the standardization of the entire contracting process. So we don't have a standard intake today. We do have playbooks, but they are not involving standard clauses for deviations, for example. So we are starting drafting it each and every time from scratch. So it's harder for the review part. We don't have a standardized repository. So we can hardly report on specific things out of the contract. So I think the main benefit from Summize is that we can handle the end-to-end process, starting from the intake and then going through the creation, through the negotiation part till the repository, and also getting the extractions from the legacy contracts.
That makes sense, and I'm glad. And in terms of obviously one of the elements that was relevant to PTC was the Teams chatbot. So yeah. I guess there's one which is, I guess, the value that you will see to kind of get out of that, but two is a slightly side question. Was that important in getting internal buy-in, that it felt familiar to perhaps other departments that were not necessarily lawyers, that it was within Teams?
Yeah, I think it's really a key part for the adoption of a tool like a CLM tool, that we're getting the other departments on board, sales or finance or whatever, and really doing this end-to-end process. So they are not need to go to a web page or whatever. They can stay in their environment where they're working. So it's not only the Teams chat, but for us, it's also the Salesforce integration. So our CRM system, which is really important for us, so that the business user can start the process wherever they are.
That makes sense. One thing just to pick up on, because I think you've referenced it a couple of times. I think it's a really powerful sort of theme or ethos to have within a legal department. I know in PTC there's a huge focus on the digital thread, because I think that's something which I guess I'm going to relate it to kind of the business language, like the business speaks is about the digital thread. So I think legal have adopted that within their terminology. Just talk to us a little bit about what the digital thread is, and I guess how that's relevant to legal versus the business.
Yeah. So actually, the digital thread is something we're selling to our customers. So having a consistent data flow through the entire process, having a consistent process, and just getting transparent on this entire process, and also seeing this end to end. It's also hard where to define where does the process start and where does it end. So we are starting with the contracting process. For us, it starts with the request from sales, and it really ends with the financial review at the end, before we are going to the booking. So this is our contracting process. And we're trying to do it end to end somehow in all the different systems being integrated into, as I said, Teams, our CRM system, but also the review systems then afterwards.
It's a powerful concept. I quite like the idea. You can always visualize a thread going through numerous tools, and I think it's a very visual way of, in some ways, showing the power of tech and how it helps at each stage and the different benefits. I think it's quite a good.
And making it traceability, increasing the traceability.
Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely. And like you say, the data points that comes through it is powerful. So obviously, a lot of people are starting. We find this when we're speaking to potential customers. Their journey on buying tech. It might be their first purchase, or it might be kind of quite new for them. Is there any advice or anything you would advise kind of in-house legal teams or legal ops professionals looking at technology for their contracts?
I think first, as I said, it's super important to have the right persons involved and involve everyone who finally needs to work with your technology you are choosing. They are having different issues. They are having different perspectives on the things, and it's also not the business user only. It's also IT functions. So we spoke with several IT functions within PTC, the system specialists, the AI specialists, then the digital transformation department. So really getting everyone at the table and getting what's important for them, really to choose the technology. And then maybe a second advice, a little bit more hands-on. We are somehow also struggling with finding the right balance between being agile and thinking about this end-to-end process and how it could look like in the future. But the most requirements we're just getting by doing it and seeing. So we didn't know what we really want until we started digging into this topic. So yeah.
Almost a Nike phrase of just do it. Just kind of you got to. You learn by doing. I think it's powerful. I think the one thing that really strikes me from this conversation as well is just the importance of, the wider business involvement. And I think in some people say this, but I think actually the way you've described it and more how you make the benefits of legal tech relevant to each department and how you really bring to the forefront the return on investment or how important it is to those departments. So you're almost building separate business cases for each business department. And I think that is something which is often overlooked. It's very legal focused. I think that was really powerful. Perfect. Well, look, thank you so much for joining us today. And for those watching, thank you for joining on the Legal Disruptors podcast. This is now series 2. I look forward to hopefully some more coming soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.